us off with I'll start us off with the land acknowledgement. Next slide, please. The work of the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians takes place on traditional Indigenous territories of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently the territories of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations. This territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. Today, Toronto, the traditional Mohawk name of this area called Toronto, which means trees in the water, and its surrounding areas are still home to Indigenous people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to meet, work, and play on this territory as settlers. Next slide. But before we begin, I'll just give a brief introduction of myself as I'll be facilitating the session today. My name is Rida Esker. I'm the Director of Development at CASA, and I support the organization through grant writing, capacity building projects, fundraising, and stakeholder engagement. And I'll be joined by my colleague Gaurath Alain, who is the Executive Assistant and Membership Coordinator at CASA. Next slide. So a little bit more about CASA and the work we do. We're a non-for-profit social justice umbrella organization, and we represent over 120 members. So our aim is to build the capacity of South Asian communities through advocacy work, training, as well as policy change. And we're leading numerous projects and advocacy work related to enhancing health equity, supporting immigration and settlement, economic empowerment, and advancing anti-racism. And we also partner with our member agencies and other social justice organizations across Canada to work towards these strategic directions. Next slide. And before we officially begin, I'll just kind of give us a breakdown of the agenda for today. So now that we've done the introduction of CASA, we're going to be moving on to a little bit more about what the Data for Change project is. And followed by this, we're going to be discussing the purpose of the community of practice as well as some ground rules. And then we'll move on to our fireside chat, which will be followed with some time for Q&A with our guest speaker. And then we will continue into our presentations from Ship and Logical, also accompanied by a Q&A segment before we close off. Next slide. And I'll now pass it on to Kosal to introduce the Data for Change project.
Thank you so much, Rita, and good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Kosal Key. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Find Help 211. And Find Help is hosting this section of series of learnings with the sector, and so happy to have you all join us this afternoon. If this is your first time here with us, normally what I do is just take a little bit of time just to provide folks with a little bit of an overview of the overall project that we're looking to do and the change that we're hoping to make. So the project overview of Data for Change overall is really to test the social identity data collection across our community social services sector and to better understand how we're all collecting it across our organizations and to provide resources and support as you do so. So the objectives there, as you can see, is to collect social identity data. If this is part of your role within your organization, please join us as a learning circle, and really great to have you join us today. And really, if you're collecting social identity data with the hopes is that as we all do this in our own organization, is that we're beginning to think about how we can advance better outcomes for equity deserving communities that we serve, and with a larger objective of how do we do this across the organizations, and how do we support each other as we do this. This learning series does provide a little bit of the socialization of it, the collection and the methodology and the tools across the various folks are using across our community social services sector. And that does wrap up our third objective, is so to learn together, to collect it together, and of course to advocate and use the data together as well are the real main objectives of social for change, or data for change rather, apologies. Next slide, please. This is our third round of providing this capacity building opportunity for this sector. Our other rounds, we had other partners, and so I'm really excited to introduce, if this is your first time coming here, I'm just seeing all of our partners here on this slide deck. We have CASA, as you've heard, is leading our community of practice component of the work. We have SHIP, who is providing our capacity building series and learning and showing of how they're showcasing how their agency has to collect social identity data over the course of a few years. And then we have a capacity building consulting group, Logical Outcomes, that's also here to showcase more the expertise, the technical skills, and the rigor around collecting this in an evaluation kind of framework. So, and then overall, as you can see, Find Help is also hosting a knowledge mobilization hub, which allows us to kind of house these recordings, house all of these places. And if I can just get the next slide, maybe I could speak about the knowledge mobilization there up there. Oh, maybe the next slide. I'll come back to that. Overall, if you're joining us, you're knowing that these are a series of training that's been going throughout the year since April and will take us right till the end of the year. These design sessions and capacity building learning sessions are designed in a data equity kind of natural segments. And how we do this is we are now in stage 2, which is really the July COP learnings. But in each stage, we have all of our partners segmented throughout each month to kind of take us through each of the stages of developing and doing data collection. Next slide, please. And finally, this is the page that I was hoping to just speak a little bit more about, is to not take too much time. If you want to dig back into some of the previous learnings that we've had or other capacity building sessions, please, I encourage you to go to dataforchange.ca. This is where the knowledge hub that is hosted by Find Help and all of our partners and all of the learnings that they are collecting and sharing along the way are all hosted there. For future learnings and future opportunities as well, please sign up and we'll provide you with registration links for other upcoming opportunities. And we encourage all of you to just share this widely with the sector, as this is not just a Find Help or CASA or Logical Outcomes or SHIPS opportunity. This is really looking to build a momentum across our sector for all of us to start to collect social identity data and have a place for support. All of you who are doing this individually, as you'll see a showcase today, hopefully, is to really share with how are we doing this, what are the challenges, and if we can kind of drive the knowledge and the capacity into this website, is to place it all there for you. So we encourage many of you to go visit when you have time. And then so now I'll turn it back to Rita.
Thanks.
Oh, do you want me to do this one? Okay, that would be. And I often also say this in our website, is that data equity and equity work in general is always hard. And so please make sure that you are doing self-care and well-being throughout any of these workshops or as you're working through this with us and joining us. So we continue to ask you to be mindful, to pace yourself as you're doing this work. If you need to take a break, step away, please do. As you need and as your body needs as well. So please practice self-care. There will not be natural breaks in this session, so please practice that for yourself. And know that equity work, when we're doing this in an organization, is that here it's a community of practice, so you're not alone. And I hope you all feel that in these sessions and all of the sessions that we do. But please do know that we are being recorded. So if you feel like you want to turn your camera off, please do. And this is really a place for you to come and learn and engage with us. All the sessions are recorded. And if you miss anything, again, just continue to go back to our dataforchange.ca website to catch up.
I messaged you a code that came to my email.
Oh, and if you are not on mute, please keep yourself on mute. Thank you. And we'll turn it back to Rita for your next piece.
Thanks, Kosal. So if this is your first time joining the community of practice, this is just a little bit more background on what the session is about. So the purpose of the COP and our role as CASA is to provide the space, structure, and support that allow members such as yourself to share, learn, and address real-life challenges in collecting social identity data, as well as we hope to have some focused discussions and conversations around what was taught in the previous SHIP and logical outcome workshops. And through peer dialogue and shared experience, we're hoping that these sessions will help build collective capacity to conduct equity-informed data practices across the sector. Next slide. So just a couple of ground rules for these COP sessions. So the first is brave spaces and building trust. So brave spaces means creating an environment where everyone feels safe, respected, encouraged to share. And unlike safe spaces which focus on avoiding harm, brave spaces invite people to step into discomfort and be vulnerable, which will help with personal and group growth. The next is respectful communication. So we hope that in these community of practices, everyone will communicate with care, attentiveness, and acknowledgement of others' dignities. And then we have maintaining confidentiality. So we hope that whatever's shared in each of these community of practice workshops will stay in these spaces. And when it comes to, especially when it comes to personal stories or opinions shared without explicit consent. And then we have the openness to diverse perspectives. So we welcome everyone's different perspectives and ideas, even if they challenge our own. And in our workshops, we ask everyone to stay open to learning and unlearning, even if it feels uncomfortable. And lastly, we have inclusivity. So we want everyone to feel welcome, respected, and be able to be themselves, which means making sure all voices are heard, not just invited. And we will use clear language, make space for quieter people, and watch for actions or words that might leave somebody out. Next slide. So with that, we'd like to get into our fireside chat for today. I'll now pass it on to Kosal to introduce our fireside speaker from Jewish Family and Child Services.
Thank you so much. So we just wanted to maybe bring down the slide and just put their colleague up there. So Maximus Cherncy is from Jewish Family and Child and sits at our partnership table where we have a few agencies that are from the sector that's advising, supporting, and also supporting this project as well. And Jewish Family and Child has been with us in this journey. And so Maxim, thank you so much for providing the opportunity. But before I share this, I just wanted to let folks know the format for the day. And what we're hoping to do is provide Maxim and Jewish Family and Child just 10 minutes to present just a little bit about the work that they've been doing as an organization, showcasing a bit of their work. And then we will do a bit of a fireside chat where Maxim and I will just talk a little bit and go back and forth on some Q&A. And then we'll open the floor for the audience to ask questions. So thank you so much, Maxim, for joining me this afternoon. Just before I allow you the 10 minutes, I'm just going to say a little bit about who you are and how you came to this work. So Maxim holds a master's degree in international business and economics of industrial organization from the IAE Graduate Program School of Management in Nice, France. Since October 2024, he has been working as an equity, diversity, and inclusion data analyst at Jewish Family and Child Services, supporting data collection, analysis, and reporting related to client demographic data and organizational equity efforts. So a really great speaker for us today and housing a lot of knowledge and organization knowledge. So the floor is yours if you want to share your presentation and have your 10 minutes on to showing how you're doing the work in your organization.
Okay,
Maxim?
thank you, Ghazal. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, good. So, hello everyone, my name is Maxim and I'm the EDI data analyst at Jewish Family and Child Service, and I've been with the agency for almost a year. And today I want to share our EDI journey. So our organization is funded by a diverse group of partners and private donors. You can see our major funders on the slide. We deliver over 30 programs across three main areas, increasing safety and security, reducing the effects of poverty, and improving mental health and well-being. Each of our funders has different demographic reporting requirements, which adds complexity to data collection and reporting. We serve a wide range of clients, including members of the Jewish community, as well as general public. So why did we decide to collect social identity data in the first place? The most important is to better understand who we serve and make sure our services align with the needs of the diverse population we support. By comparing client demographics to community data, we can identify underserved groups and address potential gaps or barriers in access. This information also helps us design and improve program based on community-informed data. And in addition, SID collection allows us to meet funder and ministry reporting requirements and provide strong EDI evidences as a part of our common accreditation process. We collect demographic information at all stages of service during intake, assessment, and ongoing case management. This is a set of variables we collect in the person profile section of our case management system. It's a gender, date of birth, postal code, language, religion, Canadian legal status, country of birth, marital status, and race. As part of our ongoing collection and analysis of SAD, we used multiple data sources. Our primary source was Matrix Case Management System, specifically the person profile section. To support comparative analysis, we also used census data from Stat Canada and results from our internal staff survey. We started with 9 pilot programs, resulting in a sample size slightly more than 1,400 clients. A key part of our process was conducting data quality assurance to understand the completeness and consistency of our data. To maintain confidentiality, we applied self-suppression rules when presenting results. In December 2024, we started producing our baseline reports using data from October and November 24. And we also implemented monthly data pools to monitor changes over time. We created compliance tracking, and it helps us identify missing variables and overall data completeness by program managers. And I will show you our progress later in the presentation. We also generated both program level and agency level reports, including comparative analysis, and provided IT and service recommendations to improve data infrastructure and support frontline data collection practices. As with any large-scale data project, our SAD project came with its own set of challenges, but also we found solutions. So we started by recognizing the complexity of our organization. As I previously mentioned, we are a multi-service agency with different funders, and each funder has its own unique reporting requirements. This made it difficult to create a unified approach to data collection. On top of that, we encountered some technical and system limitations. CPIN and our internal system, Matrix, they collect SAD in a different way, and that created barriers to data collection. And unfortunately, this issues created additional difficulties, so we made the decision to transition to a new case management system. We didn't have much resistance from staff because this work was strongly supported with clear commitment from our board and CEO. It created the foundation for early and intentional engagement across the agency. Also, we limited the number of variables to just 9. We also showed program managers how the data could be used to inform service delivery, and we also involved staff in setting realistic timelines in data collection. Privacy and data security were another area we took right from the beginning. Our privacy-related documents are translated to multiple languages, and to maintain confidentiality, we avoided sending any sensitive client data by email, and we applied self-suppression rules when presenting results. As the data started to come in, we noticed quality issues. For example, some fields were misspelled or inconsistent. To address this, we started developing a data dictionary to unify data entry. We also found solutions that help us make progress. To begin with, we provided support to frontline staff. We generated personalized missed SAD reports with direct links to client profiles to make the update process as smooth as possible. And we made sure to maintain a supportive tone. There was no blame, just partnership. We also took a flexible approach to implementation. We ran multiple Q&A sessions, extended deadlines where needed, and accepted that 100% completion rate wouldn't be realistic in every program. In some cases, we even simplified the collection process. Another lesson we learned was the importance of how we present data. After our initial reports, program manager asked for easier to understand formats, and we completely redesigned the slide deck to make the information easier to understand. One of the biggest drivers of this work was having a dedicated EDI data analyst, which just so happened to be me. So when problem came up, I had no one else to blame, only me. But having this role allowed us to troubleshoot in real time and support staff and leadership during the project. Finally, we have strong collaboration between IT and evaluation teams. It helps us align data collection with real service needs and resolve any technical challenges quickly and effectively. This graph shows the percentage of missing data by SAD variables across family service programs, comparing our baseline in November 2024 to the most recent data that I pulled last week. As you can see, we made significant improvements, especially for primary race, country of birth, and Canadian legal status, where missing data dropped by over 20%. And this graph shows our compliance tracking progress over time, starting from our baseline in November 2024 to the most recent data pool. So at the beginning, over 90% of clients had missing SID data, but through consistent engagement and improvements, we reduced that number to under 50. So the percentage of clients with complete SID data has grown from just 8% and baseline to over 51% by the end of July. And on this slide, you can see a sample of the report we provided to program managers. On the left, we show the overall client profile using the visual, and we choose this format because it's eye-catching and easier to remember. On the right, you see one of the 9 SAD variables. In this case, it's age comparison. We display the completeness rate and compare the client data with our catchment area, Toronto and York region in this case, as well as with family service staff. What stands out here is that the age profile of our clients differs quite a bit from that of our staff, which can help inform recruiting strategies. And that brings us to the end of our SAD journey so far. Thank you for following along.
Thank you, Maxim. This is wonderful. And thank you so much for openly sharing just your learning and your journey. And I love that you guys have taken a staged approach to, because you do have such a large multi-service organization. And so obviously doing a one stroke of all 30 programs would have just been too overwhelming, but we love the stage learning. So if it's okay for you to start, you and I maybe have a bit of a conversation just to continue thoughts on some of the pieces and then perhaps open the floor. Does that work for you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. And I know that folks are going to have questions, and if you do, and as they come up, feel free to just put them in the chat box there. We'll try our best to answer it during the Q&A period. But just wanting to open most of all around, again, thank you for sharing, and just what were some of the response from the program managers as you're implementing this, and that leadership buy-in and sponsorship was really there. You said that the board and the leadership team was really on board, and you received from the missing data and how staff engagement has really been pivotal in those pieces. But overall, what do you feel were some of the key pieces to really getting managers to doing the work and being comfortable with collecting social identity questions?
So when we presented our baseline reports to managers, I was afraid that they will not engage, but they were very engaged and constructive. For example, several program managers provided even specific requests. For example, one of the program manager asked us to redesign the presentation format, which shows that they're interested in it. And also, some of the managers suggested moving beyond city level comparison, and
Yeah.
they requested neighborhood level data to help assign social workers based on clients' geographical proximity. Another manager raised the importance of language data. She suspected that there were many Spanish-speaking clients in her program and wanted confirmation. Like not only to translate materials like privacy forms, but also make the case for hiring a Spanish speaking worker. I think overall the feedback reflected managers thinking in a collaborative way about how to use the data to improve service delivery.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm hearing is through getting, so each program manager gets that dashboard of their program profile against other regional and geographic
Yes.
comparators, against all the stats, and then folks are starting to make the link, like, the scope and what we're comparing our stats with is probably maybe at a neighborhood level, just to see who else is in the neighborhood, what other services or gaps are missing. Language proficiencies is really great in terms of a hiring and improving and the staff composition. And so really great that that's happening. And so as folks are, how often do they get the snapshots, the snapshots that are on a quarterly basis or on your organization? Or
So we prepared for now for only for baseline reports.
okay.
Because we highlighted the missing data, and after we are waiting till social workers finish and fill all the requested information. After we will start, it will be our next step to build the
Yeah.
agency level dashboard.
Oh, agency level dashboard.
Yeah.
That's the golden gem that most folks want. And so tell us a little bit more around what do you see as the next steps for this project now that you're kind of coming to kind of the end of the pilot phase, and how do you take the project to the next level?
We have quite few next steps planned, and but again, this is a very much an ongoing project rather than a one-time data collection effort. As I previously mentioned, we want to build a multi-agency level dashboard to support more integrated reporting and monitoring. We also plan to implement some of the feedback we received, including adding neighborhood level comparison to help program plan service more locally. We also looking to expand the numbers of variables collected. One of the most important is we want to improve our current case management system, and eventually we want to switch to a system that is more compatible to data collection, more up to date, more secure with new additional features. Another key goal is to strengthen SAD collection during intake and to start collecting demographic data even for people who don't end up receiving service, so we can better understand access and potential barriers. So
Like the
in
ones who
short,
decline service, you mean? The one
yeah,
that doesn't move on into intake.
yeah.
Okay. That would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so in short, there is still a lot to do, and we see this as a long-term evolving project.
That's awesome. And yeah, it looks like you're looking at it from an infrastructure plus systems improvement of your dashboard, and then how do you create that larger communication tool of an organizational wide dashboard. And so that's really great. And it takes those incremental steps that we were talking about from a pilot stage and a staged approach to the work, but continuing to recognize that this is not just a one and done kind of project, but rather having multiple folds and multiple integrations throughout your engagement with both staff and services. Is there any intention to kind of right now you're sharing your your one pager with program staff? Do you share with clients or program participants who are more of in a group, or are you having it at that conversation level yet, or is it still staying at the staff level?
For now, it's at the staff level,
Okay.
but we planning to involve clients to improve our programs delivery.
Okay. Yeah. Because it'd be interesting to see their take, especially at the comparative at a neighborhood level and the nuances that they understand neighborhood and how they move and experience community and programming. So that'd be really great to hear more about. So so now that you're kind of towards this end, what kind of tips for many of us that's listening today? What tips for an organization that is just beginning this journey around collecting social identity data would you say, like, to be mindful of now that you're kind of, in your position, you're the dedicated staff person for this. You've seen this project through. What would some tips would you provide?
We have a lot
Yes.
of tips. So I think
Yeah.
first, make sure your organization has the capacity, not just technically, but in terms of staff time and leadership support. Without that foundation, it's hard to move forward. Second, you should secure buy-in at all levels. This includes your board, CEO, directors, program managers, and frontline staff. SAD
Yeah.
collection can't just be an evaluation or compliance exercise. It has to be supported across all levels of the organization. It's also critical to treat SAD collection as a long-term ongoing project, not
Mhm.
a one-time task. To keep it manageable, break it into smaller phases and focus on the gradual progress. For example, you can begin with a few high priority variables that are most relevant to your programs or funders. In our case, we pick 9 and expand it later. Trying to collect everything at once can overwhelm staff and lead to poor data quality.
Mm.
Also, you should work collaboratively across departments, engage your program teams, data teams, and leadership in co-creating their approach. We also recommended that you implement feedback from service team early and often. They will have great insights into what's working and what is not working. Um, One thing I personally found really helpful was having quick informal chats with social workers when I was in the office. I asked them about their programs and what they were finding difficult, not just related to SAD collection, but in general, what the most difficult moments and aspects of their programs. And I think this kind of conversation helped build a first relationship, show hidden barriers in these programs, and one of the most important, I think, humanize the project. So I wasn't just like a talking head who showed up to give them more work. So yeah, I think it's useful. Another important piece is to adapt how data is presented. Different programs may need different formats, so be flexible and make the information as useful and accessible as possible. It's also important to clarify why you're collecting this data right from the start, and also make sure everyone from leadership to frontline staff understands the purpose of data collection and how it will be used to improve
Mhm.
services. Where if it's possible, integrate data collection into existing workflows. Also, be sure to address privacy and confidentiality concerns. Um, as the project move forward, track and share your progress. We use compliance dashboards that I showed you to show our improvements over time. And finally, is the most important. I think don't just focus on collection. You should plan for action. The real value of demographic data comes when the data is used to inform planning. identify service gaps and guide decision making. Yeah, like always think ahead about how the data you collect will actually be used. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And I think you've given lots of folks here lots of gems of some of the takeaways, depending on where they're at right now in their data collection journey, whether they're really early on and thinking about that leadership, sponsorship, and organizational culture they need to build up front and the infrastructure they need to build up front, or whether it's about that staff engagement and how you do that. So thank you so much, Ed, for sharing just the whole slew of things that we can all consider and take away, as I think you're highlighting a lot of the key pieces in our previous workshops around how and the mindfulness that one agency has to take to do this work and to do and to see this work as an organizational effort that's just not on one person but rather on the organization to take on. So thank you. I would maybe just close us out to make sure that we have enough room for our audience to also ask you questions. Is just what's the one thing that if you could do it all over again, you would make sure that you would emphasize and focus on, that we can give the audience to. I know you have a lot of learnings there, but your own personal as the person that was kind of going to everybody and making sure you were caring for everyone's data, what's the one thing that you would take away as your own individual learning?
I think the most important learning is to be flexible and change all the time. For
Yeah,
example, we
it's awesome.
we presented two baseline reports. We received a feedback that it's not very friendly, let's say.
Yeah,
And so next report we changed the format, but before changing the format, I asked program managers, which presentation do you prefer, this or this? So
it's
always.
awesome. Always going, always, there's always a, yeah, that's great. Always a back and forth, and learning and being flexible. Thank you for for that. So now I'll just open the floor to the audience. If anybody wants to kind of unmute, ask any questions of Maxim, as he's been doing this work, rolling up his sleeve, engaging with staff, and has a lot of gems to share with us. Any questions on the floor? Just look to the Q&A. Any other questions? Give it about a few minutes. Sorry, I'm not seeing the full deck, so I don't see whose hands are up. If we have any hands up. And for folks who are wanting to ask questions, you can also put your individual agency questions at data4change@findtop.ca, and we'll make sure we'll forward your own individual questions. But just from a group community of practice learning and discussion, if there's any questions, we can take it right now as well. I think you've been as clear as mud, Maxim. Oh, Sophie has a question.
Hi, Maxim. That was a wonderful presentation. And you had so many really important points. And I particularly loved the graph that showed your movement from a lot of missing data to lots of complete data sets, and that was just beautiful. But there was something that a visualization that I had never seen before, which was the sorry, I'll just lower my hand here, which was the sort of depiction of, I suppose she's like your mode, like she's maybe she's a composite character that brings perhaps like the mean, or perhaps it's the mode, but she's your composite average character. And I wondered I don't know if we could look at that picture again, but I wondered if you could talk about the thinking behind that little depiction and how people in the agency have responded to it and how it's been useful, and just tell us more about that.
Thank you, Sophie. Can I share the
Yeah.
screen to show this
Oh.
slide again? Yeah, so initially we were sort to build our agency level overall client profile. So it's you can see it's female, 51 years, single, and so on, but just presenting only these dots with the words it's not that catching, and so I decided to add someone. So we adapted by programs. For example, we have uh, we have a program where the average age is 72 years old. So instead of this lady, we have a very cute granny that everyone loves. For child programs, we have little girl, and again, based on the feedback from program managers, they remember this picture.
That's really interesting. And I mean, I could see this being used to uncover disparities between the data in your system and what program managers are seeing on the ground. And the image makes the demographic characteristics very real and it really resonates. So perhaps if you're actually, if you're a program manager and you're dealing with a demographic that looks very different than this little composite character, then you could it may be it would help to reveal that disparity, that gap. That's how I was thinking about it as well. It's very interesting to see, and she is adorable.
It also adds some, let's say, human touch to all these numbers and graphs.
Yeah. Yeah, which is so important
Mhm.
that you're revealing the people behind the data.
Thank you, Sylvia, for your question. Do we have any other questions in the audience before we turn it on to our other presenters for the afternoon? Going once, going twice. All right, so we're leaving you the email there if you don't have a question for us directly right now, but if you have a question directly for your organization and it's a more of a private matter, feel free to email us a question and we're happy to answer it. Thank you. Rada, it's back to you.
Thank you, Gazelle, for this opportunity
Thank
to
you,
present
Maxim.
our journey.
Thank you, Maxim, for sharing. It was wonderful.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you so much, Maxim, for such an engaging fireside chat. It was really informative to hear about your organization's experience collecting social identity data, and I'm sure a lot of the organizations here will benefit from the tips. Next slide.
Thank you. I hope that everyone found something interesting in the way we did it, and I hope that everyone learned something new.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone benefited. Thank you so much. We can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to be shifting gears and we're going to be having our team from SHIP lead the presentation titled Leveraging Power BI at SHIP, Creating the MHA PDS Audit Breakdown and Client Demographics Dashboard. So we have Sachin Jacob, who is the data management specialist, along with Nicole Abriscato and Shireen Rampersad, who are managers. Next slide. Oh, sorry. I think we can take down the slideshow so they can share the screen now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So my name, hello everyone. Lovely to be back and good afternoon. My name is Nicole Bruscato and I go by pronouns she, her, and I'm the manager of Central Intake and Access here at Services and Housing in the Province, or also known as SHIP. We love our acronyms in this field, so that's just another acronym there. Here today are my lovely colleagues, Shireen Rampersan, pronouns she, her, who is the Manager of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at SHIP, and who you've already met with me in other community of practice, as well as our presentations. And then we also have a really great opportunity to have Sajin Jacob here, who goes by pronoun he, him, who is a data management analyst at SHIP. Sajin graduated from the Toronto Metropolitan University with a Bachelor's of Commerce in Business Technology Management. His journey at SHIP began as a student intern, followed by a contract role within our Information Systems Department, eventually led to a full-time position at SHIP, which we are so grateful for. Sajin has been working with SHIP for over 7 years and currently serve as a data management analyst in the Quality and Privacy Department. One of the responsibilities of Sajin is developing dashboards to visualize and interpret data, helping to drive informed decision-making and managing the clinical records management system that we use at SHIP. Sajin also holds a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification and has also received internal auditing training. Outside of work, Sajin enjoys scenic drives and has a passion for outdoor adventures. So today's session that we're providing here at the Community of Practice will be focusing on a live demo of our SHIP client data dashboard through Power BI with Sajin to really help highlight how our organization uses and really implements our visual tool to support the alignment of our client data, and a short discussion on our community approach and how we leverage the data tools such as Power BI in supporting the foundation and delivery of data equity grounded through health equity and social justice. There'll also be some time for questions as well, as I'm sure there may be for Sajin and the work that he's put into our dashboard. But before I pass it over to Sajin, I'm going to pass it to Shireen to talk a little bit about why we have implemented our dashboard the way that we have to really support that health equity and social justice framework. So thanks everyone, and passing it over to Shireen.
Thank you, Nicole, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be back again. And I think our conversation, it was very fitting that Maxim went and shared with us just now their journey, because their journey very much aligns with the journey that SHIP has been on. And what you'll see today in our dashboard potentially is just more information about how another organization has been able to look at sociodemographic data a little bit differently as well. So hopefully you'll have some insight into two organizations today. So one of the things that I wanted to go over as the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager, our little team here, Nicole, myself, and Sajin, this data equity work is really important for our organization. We recognized and we were fortunate enough to be able to have a team of people within the organization, the three of us, who really took this on as something that we wanted to be able to do and provide for SHIP, recognizing that we needed the expertise of all three of us in order to really focus on data equity. And you'll see from Sajin really why Sajin is a pivotal part of this team and of this work. But for me, it really became around how do we maintain that equity piece of our data collection and management analysis, as well as implementation of what our data is telling us and how we use our data across the organization in our programming, in our development, and in our grant writing proposals. So you'll see some, when Sajin pulls up the dashboard, you'll see some differences in the way that we view data at SHIP. So for example, you'll see that we don't talk about compliance when it comes to validity of our data. Our dashboard doesn't use the word compliance, even though that is the word that our funder uses. Compliance means that you are complying with something. And the way that we view collection of data at SHIP from clients is that we're not trying to get them to comply. We're trying to get them to tell us about themselves. We're building trust with them in order for them to tell us who they are and share with us their experience and their identities. So when you're having conversations in the way that we train, if you attended our first workshop or our last workshop, where we talked about our data equity training that's required training for all of our staff, we talked about that idea that we don't train staff to collect data. We train staff to build relationship with clients in order to learn more about their identities and their experiences, which then transforms itself into the data that we need. So because of that way of looking at our data collection, that means that our dashboard should reflect that as well. So instead of compliance, we talk about alignment. Is the data that we have in our dashboard about clients and their identities aligned with what we should be expecting from our staff? So when you see the dashboard and Sajin demonstrates and goes through how we've built our dashboard, just kind of keep that in mind. So some of the terms as well, and if you attended our previous workshops, you'll know that we as a mental health and addictions organization have to collect what they call MHA PDS. So it's mental health and addictions provincial data set data. So it's a lot of information, and we are required from our funder, the Ministry of Health, to collect all of that information. So when we're looking at the dashboard, the ministry and our funder doesn't necessarily use the same terminology as we do, as we choose to use at SHIP. So we have changed the terminology to be as inclusive as possible within our dashboard, despite the fact that the ministry may not be using those terms. Okay, so I thought I'd just kind of set the stage with that, and then I will turn it over to the most interesting stuff for Sajan to go through our dashboard with us. It's over to you, Sajan.
All right, thank you so much, Shireen, and thank you, Nicole, and thank you for having me for this presentation. It's definitely been a great journey working with Nicole and Shireen, and happy to share with everyone our EDI journey. So let me pull up my screen. And hopefully you're able to see that. Okay, perfect. So essentially what you're seeing here is a live view of the MHA PDS dashboard that we use. And essentially this was built to support that client data alignment, just like what Shireen mentioned, and help with that equity-based decision making. And so you can see we have a lot of pie charts, over 20 different elements that we're looking at. When we first started with looking at our EDI data, we were only looking at 8 elements. And that has since grown to over 20 based on the MHA PDS standards. And so one of the more fun ways we like to get the buy-in for staff is we like to say when we have the staff look at all these elements is think of it as little watermelons. And so we can make them think that they are going to get hungry for collecting this data. So essentially, what you're seeing here in all these pie charts, so we have the greens and red portions in each of these 20 different elements. And the green is representing what the aligned rate is in each of these elements. And so the aligned, what would be aligned is whether it has been collected and whether it's using one of the aligned drop-down values as per the MHA PDS standards. And then the red portion is the unaligned. And so unaligned would be if we're missing data in any of these elements. It could be missing, or it could be using one of the old terminology. So for those of you who may be familiar with the old demographic collection called CDS, or Common Data Set, that used to be the old demographic collection, and some of these categories may still be collecting some of the values from those items. And so that's what the unaligned rate is based off. And so what we're able to visually see here is an overall agency view of how aligned we are in each of these key areas. So right from our agency wide rate, with over 1,000 clients that are reporting this data, we're at almost about a 91% alignment rate, which is pretty good. We're hoping to get to 100 soon, but we're in a pretty high rate. And of course, there is a program selector where individual programs can drill down to see what their individual alignment rate is. So for example, our ACT teams are one of the high performing reporters in the MHA PDS data. And so if we click on ACT North, for example, we can see that they're almost at 100% alignment. So they have a lot of greens. And so this is what each of our programs are essentially able to do. And where this really gets interesting is this helps to see how strong, how well built we have in collecting this data and how accurate we are in reporting this. And so, for example, with the ACT North team that we have selected here, they're at a 99% alignment. And so they have a pretty strong rate to be able to help make those equity-based decisions. So this is our overall agency-wide view of each of the individual key demographics that we're collecting. And so if we move to the second page of our dashboard, this is where we get into a little bit of a more drill down or a breakdown of what we're collecting. So what we're seeing here, this graph here just shows us, okay, which programs are reporting the most unaligned, right? Which programs have the most incomplete or missing data? And so this chart here at the bottom is the key pivotal piece where it allows each program to see for each of their clients, and of course, which worker is assigned. Now for this demo version, you can see we have masked the client and worker details for privacy concerns. But each program will see their details and they can see for each of their clients, which clients are aligned in each of these 20 different demographics, and then which ones are unaligned. And so it's a great way to more easily see which clients need to be updated. And of course, this is all connected with our clinical record management system, CRMS. So all this data is live and it's synced directly to our CRMS. And it does get updated every hour. So every hour, programs are able to see what the most up-to-date results are, and they can use this to track that. And also highlight where those misaligned areas are occurring. And so when we move to the third page of this dashboard, this is where we get to the main client demographics piece of our dashboard, which is essentially where we can see in our agency as a whole, what kind of clients are we serving? And so we can already see that most of our clients by their ethnicity, 31% are identifying as a white North American. Most are identify as male, for example. And so you can see that it gives that visual overall of the clients that we are serving. And of course, there is also the drill down by individual programs. So we can click on a particular program. And so for our ACT programs, they serve, for example, ACT North, which would be the Brampton area. That area is primarily a lot of South Asians. And so when we click ACT North, we can see there's a lot of clients. 28% are South Asian. And so we can see how the data is helping us visualize those clients that we're serving. This also allows us to see what is the unaligned rate in each of these demographics. So for example, one of the most unaligned areas right now that's not being collected as accurately is, for example, the religion piece, right? Religion is only at 22.5 we're unaligned at 22.5%. So there is quite a big unalignment there. So we can't really make well enough decisions based on a religion, for example. So that's an area that may need to be worked on, right? So this is what we're able to essentially see in our dashboard. And of course, it's interactive, right? So if we want to see, for example, here, there are almost 41% clients that have a schizophrenia pre-existing condition. So if we click on that, the whole dashboard then changes to display clients based on that particular selection. So now we can see what other areas of these demographics do clients identify or represent based on that particular selection, right? So essentially, this dashboard, hopefully when you're able to get something like this or be able to develop a dashboard like this, it will really help in improving your data collection. It really has for us too. Because again, when we first started collecting this, we were only looking at 8 elements, and we were at only about a 50% alignment. And then through the trainings, through resources that we're able to provide, within a year, within 6 months, we were able to reach almost a 90% alignment. And that was just with the 8 elements. And now when we brought forward the 20 elements, over 20 from the MHA PDS, again, that kind of brought down our alignment rate a little bit more because of the new elements, and there was a lot of missing values. But then again, through training, which was a key piece, training, resources, that really helped get our staff to have this data collected, and they saw the importance of having this collected. And so one of the key pieces in maintaining the collection of this data is Shireen, Nicole, and I hold monthly training sessions. So whether it be mainly for new staff or even existing staff, to really ensure that we're all aligned in this data collection. So essentially that is a walkthrough of our dashboard and how we've been able to use it to keep track of our client demographics and how it's really helped us in our equity-based decision making.
Thank you, Sajan. So now we can open it up for any questions if people have a couple questions.
Before the long weekend, you have a quiet group today.
If there are no questions, I'll turn it back over to Rita.
There is a question in the chat from Sophie. She said, I'd love to hear more about the decision-making part.
Awesome. I can talk about that if you want, and then Nicole can jump in. So one of the things that we've been able to do with this data is to be able to use our information very readily for grant proposal writing. And when we're writing proposals and when we're going for funding or when we're looking at other opportunities in the community, we can be very specific about very specific communities. It's also enabled us to use this data to put together or to conduct a community needs assessment. So we are able to then look at the community through this lens of data and recognize where the gaps are in our service provision and as well as in our housing. We're a supportive housing provider primarily. So when we took that deep dive into our data, we also looked at who are we missing from our data? And that provided us an opportunity to put in a proposal, a grant proposal around conducting a community needs assessment. When we did that, we received that funding to be able to then hire consultants to dive even deeper into the data and to look at the communities that we serve and do focus groups within those communities. So now we have a community needs assessment that is community-based, that we were able to conduct with community and with partners. And now we have a data set that we can make decisions about our services and where it is appropriate for us to look for more funding and which communities and which partners we should be partnering with. So that's another piece of the decision making. And when we look at our data, we realized that yes, we do not have partnerships or solid partnerships with, let's say, South Asian community organizations that primarily serve South Asian community. And so therefore that directed us to try to strengthen our partnerships with those particular organizations or organizations that serve our 2S LGBTQ plus community, where we do have a significant portion of our clients who identify within the 2S LGBTQ plus community, but we don't have, say, significant partnership with organizations who primarily serve that community. So it's helped us to make some decisions about who we should be reaching out to and where our gaps within our services lie and who we need to be able to, specifically around our housing, where we need to direct some of our funding proposals in order to be able to speak to those equity deserving groups. Does that make sense, Sophie?
That's awesome, Shireen. Just the first part, when you're talking about comparing the demographic characteristics of the folks who you serve, or looking at those to identify gaps, were you making a comparison against like StatCan data?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's
with the community needs assessment, they did that for us. And we did overall Ontario, as well as we serve 3 primary communities. So Kitchener-Waterloo, Peel Region, and Dufferin. And so they did separate focus groups in each of those communities, as well as comparative to each of those StatsCan community data as well.
right. The census metropolitan area, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's very sophisticated.
Edith? Is that Edith? Yes. I think you're still on mute, Edith.
Sorry. Thank you very much for all that information. It was very enlightening for me. I work specifically in this area, and I have had a lot of challenges throughout the process. Not close to where you are, very far from that, but I really like what you said about building trust with the clients so that they can tell you their story. And so more than, I think you said more compliance approach, it was that building the trust with from staff to clients. How do you, because one of the challenges that we have is to consistently collecting data for all clients, the same data for all clients across all the different programs in the organization. So how do you manage that while you focus more on building that trust? And when you ask the questions, you want to standardize a process, right? When you ask the questions to the clients, how do you make sure that, or what resources or what recommendations you have in regards to how to access those questions, how to ask those questions? Do you use a script that everybody uses for specific questions? I noticed that you collect, for example, sex at birth, but you also collect gender, and you also collect a lot of other information. And those are sometimes sensitive data to collect. sometimes members from equity deserving communities may think that if they disclose where that community is, they may not be served as with the same quality of services that other communities may have. So how do you balance all that? And I think I asked a lot of questions in just one paragraph, but it all had to do with how you collect that information.
It is a lot of questions, but I think I can probably answer it with one simple answer. And it goes back to something Sajjan said around our training program. The training that we provide, Sajjan, myself, and Nicole provide training on a monthly basis, and it's required training. All direct service staff have to take the training. And our training is those three, though it covers the three things that you kind of asked about. Sajjan covers the technical aspects of the training, the CRMS pieces, the dashboard pieces, the what the information and what your answers when you're inputting data into our system means and what that looks like, and troubleshooting some of that information as far as the actual input of data. And then Nicole covers what the data is. What is PDS data? What are the elements? What do they mean? How do they connect back to the client? What does that actually do for us? How does it help us to better know who we serve and which communities that we're serving, and individually as a client, how that better helps us to understand client needs. And then I covered the piece around the movement away from asking questions that we're all uncomfortable with to actually getting to know our clients better. And we'll get that information. So when I talk about relationship building and building trust, it is really in our training, and we say it, just do what you do. What you're doing and what you do in your job is get to know people and get to know what their needs are. And so continuing that conversation and directing your conversations with clients to also include that knowledge about themselves and what they are comfortable sharing with you is really all this data collection is about. And there may be some uncomfortable conversations, but we are there as a resource for folks that, so the example that you see in our dashboard right now, religion is an uncomfortable area for people. So we have very low alignment there. So knowing that when we look at our dashboard, and it has been that way for quite some time now, knowing that that's an area where we as the sort of data equity team know that we have to focus on in our training and with our leadership team to be able to provide them the support they need to support staff in becoming more comfortable in talking about religion. Not asking about religion, but talking about it. If it is something that's important to a client, if it is something that they would like to see us help and support with, we need to become more comfortable with those conversations. So we include that opportunity in our training, but even after post-training, we are available to all of the staff to be able to talk about any barriers they're experiencing in getting this information, or if there is certain areas that they need us to focus on more in our training, as well as we have a manual. We have resources that we've created. Sajjan has a manual with the steps around inputting the data. So that's all available to all of our staff at all times as well. And I think it's been effective for us, despite the fact that we have over 30 programs at SHIP, independent programs that collect data, but they're doing it consistently because they all take the training. So hopefully that answers your question. And I see the time, so I don't want to monopolize the time. I think logical outcome still has to go. So if there were any other questions, maybe you could send them to us and we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, I do see there's two questions. So yes, please, you can send them to the Data for Change email or to SHIP.
You know, I'll say as logical outcomes, because I'm the only representative today. I'm happy for you to answer this question, actually. I think it's just one. I don't have a lot to present on, so I think that would be just fine.
There was two questions. So there was one on how do we keep it real in live time? So I will defer that to Sajjan because the technical piece is not my forte there. And then the second question was, do you collect demographic data for programs that are very short drop-in programs that may not allow staff to develop relationship with clients? Yes, we do. Part of our central intake team, we do an intake with a client and then they're placed on our wait list. So they may have like 1 or 2 interactions with folks. So we trying to, really work on motivational interviewing skills as well as coming from an inclusive and welcoming standpoint right at the very beginning by adopting the no wrong door policy or framework in really creating that space that people feel welcomed. And if at that point they are not feeling comfortable to share the information, we place it as asked but declined. And then if they go into a longer term service, we're able to then ask the question again and develop that comfortability. So hoping that answers the question there. And I will defer to Saja now for about how we keep it live.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I was just about to type it in, but I think it's probably better to say it in person. So essentially how the data is kept real or kept live is we're able to connect Power BI directly to our clinical database, so CRMS. We use a MySQL database. So essentially we have that connected to Power BI. We're not at a stage as yet where it's updated every second, but currently in our state, we're able to have it updated every hour. So it's an hourly live update. So hopefully that helped answer your question.
I just also wanted to add to what Nicole was saying too around the data collection for short-term programs or for intake. We're also in the process of developing another dashboard for our wait list. So clients that are not active in service, but are applicants to our services. So, because they're a very different group. That's a very different group that we also want to be able to understand who's applying for our services, who are we declining, who isn't applying. So based on statistical data around the communities that we serve, you would expect, so for an example, Brampton, we know, has a very high statistically South Asian community. And when we look at our data from our wait list, we see that we do not have a high rate of South Asian folks that are applying for our services. So then that begs the question of why, especially when we parse it down to Brampton itself. We should see, if you look at how data works, we should see a significant percentage of applicants from South Asian community, just because simply by population, it's something like 60-something%. But what we see in our data is that's not the case. And so that begs the question then of, is there a barrier for people to apply to our services from the South Asian community? Do we need to partner? And so what we do then is we look at, do we need to partner with organizations to promote our services or to provide the support services where we provide the housing? So that helps us to look at those things as well. So even though they're applicants, they're not currently in our service and that we don't have relationship particularly with them, we can also provide transparently that information to applicants to let them know that the reason we are asking these questions or that we need to know about you is because it helps us to make these decisions. It helps us to look at communities in a way where we can be supportive. So just to answer that as well.
I think that's it for the questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Sajin, Nicole, and Shireen. We really appreciate you showcasing your client data dashboard and demonstrating how visual tools can enhance data alignment. We'll now move on to the logical outcomes presentation. So we have Sophie Llewellyn, who's the Director of Evaluation and Research, along with Medha Arora, who is an evaluation analyst, and they'll be presenting on socio-demographic measures that work.
Give me just 1 second. I just realized that I'm spotlit, so you guys are all seeing my confused face as I try to. Oh, and I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you, Sophie.
Okay, great. I'm just completely confused, obviously. So it's just me. I'm flying solo today. We have 8 minutes. So And that's fine, but that's my Rita, do you want to confirm that? That's my sense that we're ending.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I want to share my screen. Let me just finish talking first. So, what I wanted to do today was, in our last presentation, we talked about some principles for selecting survey measures, and we took a look at different measures that are used, the different organizations use to collect data around race. And today I thought it would be interesting to share some ways of collecting data around gender that we like. And there's some other content that I wanted to present on, but we just don't have enough time. So I think maybe we'll just limit it to sharing some measures that at Logical Outcomes we've used in the past. And perhaps we can have a really quick conversation about gender data collection. Folks feel like that's okay, that's an interesting thing to do? Okay, there's really like not enough time for us to do this. And Ship, I really enjoyed your presentation. So um, I think our time is still being well spent. Give me 1 second. I'll just share my main screen here. Let's see. Okay, how's this? Can folks see my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, that's great. It is harder doing this solo, actually. Okay, so what did I want to say? That the University of British Columbia has done some fantastic work, I think, around gender inclusivity well across their programming, but particularly from my perspective, what's most interesting is gender inclusivity in their data systems. So UBC, I was not involved in this work at all, but it's a source that I came across when I was putting together a set of sociodemographic measures for a very large survey project. So UBC did some consulting with a trans-led consulting firm, and through that firm, there was a full audit of gender inclusivity across a number of different sort of axes, I suppose, of their programming, including data systems. And so I really like some of the approaches that they've taken to asking about gender, and I wanted to share those here. So these are some, there's some fairly basic tips around using gender inclusive language on administrative forms whenever you can, including non-binary genders or asking about including additional options, obviously, to man and woman. Thinking about why you're collecting data on gender or sex and not collecting that data if you don't need to, not requiring honorifics like Mr., Mrs., Ms., etc., and allowing people to indicate their personal pronouns. Oh, come on. But what I really liked coming out of that work was the recommendation to ask about gender separately from transgender identity. And this is an approach that we've used on our surveys. And I'm not saying that this is always the right way to do it, far from that. But I think that this has worked well for many of the populations who are taking the surveys that we prepare. So first of all, asking about gender, giving everyone a chance to share their gender identity in a way that presents a number of options, including a prefer to self-identify box. We tend to avoid the use of the word other when we're sharing write-in options for write-in answers, and and our survey platform allows us to change that wording. So we'll usually say prefer to self-identify or another gender, for example, and there's a space to write in here. And then asking separately, so, we've asked about your gender identity. Now we're going to ask if you identify as transgender. And in this particular form, we explain what transgender means because this form may be filled in by people for whom English is a fifth language, so or by young people who are not sure of the terminology. So we like to explain any terms that perhaps not everybody knows in the interest of accessibility. And so giving folks a chance to identify as a woman and as a trans woman, if that's how they would like to identify, or saying, I prefer not to say that. So I wondered if and Shireen's chipping in with some other nice resources here. So I'm looking at my time. How are we doing?
We're still good, Sophie. You want to?
Okay, great. I can just wrap it up here, and maybe we could hear from folks about approaches that they've used to collect gender information or questions.
Can I say something, Sophie, just real quick?
For sure, yeah.
I put the resource in the chat on purpose intentionally because I went to UBC, so any resources out of BC, I always, enjoy them. And I think that they have they have a very diverse community in BC, especially around gender equity. And so I think this resource, it's a training. And one of the things that was important for us when we are collecting sociodemographic information, especially around gender, is that we have training available to our staff, because the assumption that everybody understands gender equity and gender diversity in our field, it's dangerous. So I think it's important when we start to ask these questions, or when we start to have conversations with clients about their gender identity, that our staff are trained to understand the impact that even having those conversations could potentially have. So I put this resource because it is at SHIP, we are required, everyone is required to at least begin with this introductory course before we start having these conversations with clients, so that we do no further harm. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's so important. Thank you for that, Shireen. When we were coming up with this question, one of the groups who we were consulting with is a group that serves primarily to us LGBTQIA plus youth, and their advice about asking. But first of all, they were really insistent that we ask about transgender identity, and what they said to us is, trans folks know if it's safe or not to reveal their identity. And so by not asking about it, you're erasing that experience. And by asking about it, you're making space for it. But if somebody doesn't feel safe to reveal that identity, then they're not going to. And so you need to trust that, which I thought was a really interesting perspective. But at the same time, making sure that those spaces are safe to reveal that aspect of your identity is so critical. So thank you.
I think there is one more question in the chat, but we are running out of time.
Yes, I'll just answer that question with yes. We ask about sexual orientation if we ask about it, and it's actually not a question that we always ask by any means. But if it's necessary to ask that question in order to make a decision, then that would be asked separately.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophie, and as well as to SHIP for sharing your valuable expertise with us today. We really look forward to learning more from both of your organizations in the next coming workshops. And with that, before we end for today, we'd like to ask a couple questions and just see how you felt about today's session. So I'll just put up a quick Zoom poll. Let me see. Just quick, just let us know how you felt about it and if you're excited for the next sessions to come. I'll give you a couple seconds. And this is also a time, if there's any other questions you want to ask Shipperlogical, feel free, or if you want to share your organization's experience as well. Is everyone able to see the poll?
We don't see the poll. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, should be sharing now. Okay, I think we are going over time, so we'll skip to the next slide as we have our QR code for our, oh, only the empty results popped up. I guess we'll put that up back at the end, but we do have our QR code to scan here. So this is just some short feedback survey, just to let us know how you felt about the previous workshops as well as this one. And this will just give us better insight on how to plan our next COP sessions. So if you could just take a few seconds to scan this and fill in your answers, that would be really helpful. can go on to the last slide. Okay, so just to close off for today, I want to thank Ship and Logical again for presenting and sharing your tools and measures with us. I also want to thank our intern Pernika, who's been helping share the slide deck today, as well as Garth, who's been note-taking and supporting the coordination, along with Coastal and her team for their ongoing support with the project. So we're now pleased to announce the successful completion of the second stage of the Data for Change project, Collect and Store. And now the project will move on to its third stage, which is Analysis Interpret. And the next workshop will be taking place on August 14th, and it'll be led by Ship on trauma-informed practices. So the registration link should be here on the slide for you to register. And I want to thank you all for dedicating your time today to join us for this community of practice, and we look forward to your participation in the upcoming sessions. Thank you, everyone. And Gareth will be sharing the Data for Change website in the chat if anyone's still here.
Thank you, Casa, for all of the great organizing.
Thanks for all your help.
So.
Hopefully we were able to deliver.
No, you did. We just wait for, yeah.